This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, November 14th, 2013. You know, Thanksgiving is getting close. I just have to tell you, the holidays are getting close. Of course, the traditional days people celebrate the holidays. I just happen to look at the date and think, my goodness, wow, it's closing in on us. Anyway, I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news analysis and information that you need to know. We go through the news so you don't have to. We spend the time researching so you don't have to. You're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in three dimensions, and we look well beyond the headlines and bylines, the fog of misinformation, disinformation, to bring you the cutting edge. What's behind the news? What drives the news? Now, for the new listeners, and like I say, every show, we have many. We just did a show today. Joe and I recorded a show today for another network. My goodness, it just took us really half the day. But anyway, we broadcast live here on our own network for each weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the Internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can find us at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. You have to spell it all out, Hagmann.com. And Joe just waved his arms and said there's no ads playing, which is a great thing. Thank you, BTR. You got to love that.
Yeah, no ads as of yet.
That's great. Okay, well, hopefully that will continue. Thanks for joining us, folks. Thank you for your belief and your trust in us, which we don't take it lightly. We really don't. We're walking through a minefield together, and if you do peruse the news, and then most of you do, you know that this is a minefield that we're living in. I almost feel like we're living on borrowed time. We're going to open the phone lines up throughout the show tonight, 661-244-9839. But if I were to grab a name for the show tonight, and this is just moments before airtime, and I mean literally seconds before the clock hits zero. I was talking with a very good friend of mine, and sent me some information today. And of course, I had, we had talked about this before, but how about this? Crime Inc. And, we look at a number of things, and I'm going to bring Joe on here in a second, but we look at a number of things. I want you to think about this. We, right now, you look at the headlines. Look at the headlines with respect to Afghanistan. What in the world are we doing in Afghanistan? Why are our young men, and women dying over there?
They are fighting for the freedom to deal heroin and sell
opium. Yes.
Oh yeah, opium. More uses than just heroin. But yeah, this story saddens and sickens me, because we were told about this, when the conflict in Afghanistan started. After the initial months, the first months and years, how the output of the heroin and the opium had doubled, then tripled, then the soldiers were protecting the supplies, then transporting and shipping them.
Now, exactly. And if you think about Pat Tillman,
yep.
Joe,
former NFL player who left $1 million career to serve his country,
right?
Who was unhappy with what he was doing in Afghanistan and was writing letters home,
right?
Yeah, and what he saw. And
what was he going to do?
I'll tell you, before with him, I have a friend who served in Afghanistan, came back after he was hit with shrapnel and injured. He told me in great detail about the special vehicles and helicopters and planes that came in the containers that they put the stuff in, and who handled them. It wasn't regular Army. It wasn't regular Marines. They were Special Forces people. They were what the behaviors of these people. One of the cases opened in front of my friend when he was there, and the person handling the container that was loading it onto the helicopter looked at him like, "You didn't just see that, did you?" Like with a shocked look that the container just broke. He has actually
filled
pictures.
with what though? Of opium?
Oh, yeah, he still has pictures of it on his phone.
Well, if he's willing to part with those pictures, I certainly would be able to strip off the metadata and publish them. I'd be more than happy to.
He might have actually. He had a YouTube channel that he posted some of the stuff on. I don't know if that exact part was posted, but I'll look and I will get to it, ask him and find out.
All right. Well, we're going to be covering a variety of topics tonight, but this is one of the common themes that I think people have to understand. In fact, it was reported just days ago, well, now maybe a couple of weeks ago, that the brother of Afghani President Hamid Karzai, a suspected kingpin of the country's booming, and I mean booming, opium trade, been on the CIA payroll for the past 8 years. You don't think Karzai knows? You don't think Karzai knows? All right, now we got reports that the ads are playing, and I must apologize. I don't know what it's going to take, but
yeah, we do apologize for the inconvenience. I know that Blog Talk's working hard on this, so
all right,
we'll leave it in their hands, and it'll be fixed when they fix it.
Yeah, your emails to Blog Talk, be very kind. Certainly, if you can address them to Blog Talk Radio and then say, look, we don't appreciate the ads playing. We certainly we'd be very pleased with that. But Afghan's president, Hamid Karzai, his brother is on the CIA payroll, and that never has the country's opium trade been larger than it is right now. Now, that's not the. I mean, really, that's not the key issue. That was broken a couple of weeks ago. By the way, the CIA pays Ahmad, depending on how you want to pronounce it, Wali Karzai, for a variety of services, including helping to recruit an Afghan paramilitary force that operates at the CIA's direction in and around the city of Kandahar. That's where Karzai lives, by the way. But it's much bigger than this. It's much bigger. You see, an October 2008 report. Now, this was also published in the New York Times at that time, I believe. It reveals that after security forces discovered a huge tractor trailer full of heroin outside of Kandahar in 2004, it reads, before long, the commander, Habibullah John, he received a telephone call from Ahmed Wali Karzai, asking him to release a vehicle and drugs, saying it was under his control. In 2006, there was 2 years before that, there was another discovery of a cache of heroin there. Large by any standards. In the United States, investigators told other American officials that they had discovered links between the drug shipment and a bodyguard believed to be an intermediary for Karzai's brother. But it's more. It's bigger.
Would it surprise you? I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but maybe other world leaders, lots of people in other governments, foreign governments, both allies and non-allies, that were, if they were on payroll of the American government or one of their armed agencies?
No, it wouldn't surprise me a bit. In fact,
I mean, most are through aid, financial aid. They do it without having to cover it up. Like Mubarak was, and
right.
Gaddafi. We sent them lots of money in aid, and that aid wasn't just for aid. It was to do certain things to maintain a certain level of peace in the region.
That's right. No, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. And in fact, I believe we have CNN. I would say this is just me, or CNN at the very least, assets within CNN on the CIA payroll. I believe we have actual reporters, or in fact, perhaps even CBS. I don't know. But here's the thing. You remember when? Do you remember when Laura Logan interviewed someone, an alleged security guard from? Well, not an alleged. He was a security guard in Benghazi here recently. I think it was Laura Logan who interviewed this man. And he was talking about being in Benghazi, and there was a big scandal that surrounded this. And to get into the scandal itself is to really feed into the issue of his last name was Davies. I can't remember his first name. But of course, it turned out where Davies was not telling the whole entire truth, and CBS 60 Minutes backed off and said, "Oh, it was a mistake. We shouldn't have aired this." And Laura Logan was really set out to dry. Well, before Laura Logan was a girl by the name of Amber Lyon, and we do have an inquiry to Amber Lyon out there. Amber Lyon did a very, very intense, in-depth documentary in Bahrain about the uprising in Bahrain around the time of Benghazi, and it really did a fantastic job, and found witnesses. In fact, found people who were witnesses to various things, including but not limited to Benghazi and other things. Well, the whole point is this: when she filed her report with CNN, CNN was going to run with the story. In this case, was going to run with the story, but suddenly didn't. And there are allegations where CNN was paid by the United States government, by the White House, not to run the story, because it made or it exposed the ties between the White House and the Muslim Brotherhood and other assets out there in the Middle East that would expose the true agenda of this administration, this regime. So when we say, it would have surprised me to learn that other assets are on the CIA or government payroll. Absolutely not. And I think we see this. I think we're seeing this more and more. I think more and more of this is being uncovered, where various reports are being done and tanked. It's a common thing, by the way, and I've seen this happen before. In fact, I know of a case personally from Oklahoma City during the 1995 bombing where an investigative journalist investigated the Oklahoma City bombing, and I'm not going to say which agency. I don't think I would be talking out of school, but a television production company came in, purchased the story, promised to run the story about Oklahoma City. Well, they paid this investigative journalist for the exclusive rights to the story, and I'm not sure if it was $50,000 or $100,000. It was in that range. That story never ran. Not to this day, it never ran. They paid this investigative journalist for not running the story. And it's not because it was not factual. It was because if they would have run the story, they would have seen a direct connection between McVeigh and the U.S. military and current operations in that area of the country, and it would have connected some dots. So this has been going on for a number of years, and we could take it back, way back, extremely far back. But getting back to Afghanistan very quickly, and I'll turn it back over to Joe, and we'll get into more things. But there was a thing called the Golden Crescent drug trade. In fact, folks, if you want to search that term, Golden Crescent drug trade, you'll see that this was a huge operation. And perhaps one could argue, an operation that resulted or was a motivating factor for our taking over Afghanistan. Don't forget, we could have just went in there, bombed the Taliban, and left.
I got to disagree. We went in because there was a war on terror.
Yeah,
terror. We had to help Osama bin Laden escape. I mean, we had to kill him or catch him. And no, you're right. I mean, what is this? 10 years later, we're still there.
Yeah, yeah.
And why are we there? Exactly what you're talking about tonight.
Well,
that is the number one or number two purpose. The pipelines that they wanted to put in, the lithium, the resources is money that they make there. That is why we're there.
Well, there was a UN Office on Drugs and Crime report. Actually, there is a Vienna-based UN Office on Drugs and Crime. It reveals that poppy cultivation in 2012, last year, extends over an area of more than 18% of, an increase of 18% over 2011, just tens of thousands of acres. And according to the 2012 Afghanistan Opium Survey, this was released in November of last year by the Ministry of Counter-Narcotics and the the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. The potential opium production in 2012 was on the order of 3,700 tons. Now, there was bad weather and, of course, crop damage. But I guess what's worth noting here is the fact that we are in the drug trade. The Americans are in the drug trade. Think of Pat Tillman. What did he see? What was he going to do when he came back? Is there any question that he was killed, he was murdered? Regardless of the circumstances, is there any question of the manner of his death? I suppose one could say, well, one could split hairs, but the fact is he was killed, wasn't he? What was he going to do? Putting his career on hold and going over and fighting the war, seeing it wasn't what it was alleged to be, and going to open his mouth and spill the beans. But, talking with people like Susan Price, whose son Aaron Kennefick was over there, and I had looked through his personal diaries and his papers and talked to Susan and understood that he would actually deliver money to these tribal leaders. Was this goodwill money? Was this to fix the sewer system over there? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. But this goes back also, way back to if you look at it, it goes back. You can actually go back into the 40s, into World War II, and there's so many aspects to this. It's just really incredible. But at any rate, when I say the 40s, let me explain this real quick, Joe, because I've got
when you're done.
People are. I just got a notice saying, "What are you talking about? 40s?" Go ahead.
When you're done explaining that, we'll play the audio clip of the story about the opium. It is a good clip explaining the levels of trade and what the money they're making, the levels of opium they're dealing with here.
Okay.
It's staggering.
Yeah. In fact, I think it's important. But look, America is at war, and the battleground really is not abroad. It's really being fought on the streets. Well, let me rephrase that. It's being fought in American schools, in American cities. Casualties registered in the course of this conflict are incomparably higher than any other time in American history. We are fighting literally for our lives, and in the most literal sense, the lives of our very children. Now, we've been losing this, but we're talking about the war on opium. Now, I know you hear war on drugs, you automatically think, okay, well, this is a manufactured war. Well, it is. but that doesn't take away the fact that the drugs are affecting our children and they're affecting, destroying people's lives. But here's the sick part of this. The sick part is we are the biggest drug agents in the world. Well, go ahead and play that clip, and because I think that's important for people to hear.
Yeah, and you're right. At the same time, we're locking people in, putting people in jail for decades for, having small amounts of these substances. And sometimes if they're selling, that's one thing. If it's personal use, I think that's separate. But the laws are way too strict on long-term sentencing rather than rehabilitation.
Well, that's a good point.
But the bigger issue is, a lot of musicians and rap artists used to sing about how the CIA brought the drugs in. They weren't wrong. I mean, they're bringing the drugs in.
That's right.
And distributing it, and then recapturing the people who end up with the drugs and throwing them away for long periods of time in jail, 30, 40 years.
The opposition is who they're throwing in jail, the opposition, and that's hard to understand. And this is, by the way, this is what Mena, Arkansas was all about. This is happening in Central and South America, really Central America during the Clinton years in Arkansas.
They found out prison is a very lucrative business also.
Very much so.
So you make the money from selling the drugs to the drug dealers, and then you make money from the prisons you put them in after you arrest them for the drugs you sold them.
Right. And I should say this. The explosion of the opium production after the invasion of Afghanistan was about the CIA's drive to really restore this lucrative Golden Crescent opium trade that was in place. It was in place during the time when the agency was funding the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets, if you recall, back from 80 to 89 or thereabouts, and flood the streets of America and Britain with really cheap heroin, and that, of course, would destroy the lives and has destroyed many lives, while making just huge, obscene profits. And Karzai being on the CIA payroll is a little more than an embarrassing issue, I believe. In reality, he's just the middle manager for the U.S. military industrial complex's control of the drug trade in Afghanistan. And this goes back decades and was only briefly interrupted during that period when the Taliban had taken over in Afghanistan. So if you look at this too, and if you look at the oil issue, the big oil interest in running a pipeline through Afghanistan, and you look at the opium trade, here it is. Heroin's a multi-billion-dollar business reported by very powerful interests, or supported by very powerful interests, rather, which requires a steady and secure commodity flow. I mean, you need the constant flow. One of the hidden objectives of the war was really to restore the CIA-sponsored drug trade to its levels before the war, or before the Taliban took over, and exert direct control over the drug routes. And that's what we're doing there. And as revealed in the Iran-Contra and Bank of Commerce and Credit. Remember BCCI? Remember those scandals? CIA covert operations in support of the Mujahideen had funded through the laundering, or had been funded through the laundering of drug money. So this is dirty money. It was recycled through a number of banking institutions.
All Federal Reserve money is dirty money.
Right, but didn't HSBC, or which bank was noted for? I know there's a number of banks. Which ones weren't?
Should start with. But yes, HSBC, J.P. Morgan Chase. There was more settlements, more agreements made on separate crimes than smuggling and drug money. But HSBC was the big one. Smuggled in $500 billion in drug money and paid a $1 billion fine, I think.
Yeah, the fine was not even close to being what it needed to be.
No, they needed to double what the profit was, or what the money laundered was. I mean, it's a joke. The Department of Justice is a joke because it's a paper action only.
Well,
to say, we did do something.
Right.
See, we made them pay a fine. At the same time, everybody profited and made off like bandits after the fine was paid, because the fine was, it's like you said, gave the example, it's like robbing a bank for $1 million and paying a $10,000 fine.
Yeah, exactly, and you get to keep the other portion of the money, and no restitution at all. It really is crazy. The CIA, the secret operations, the drug money, again, no secret. Afghanistan, U.S., NATO have put really the blame on NATO for poppy cultivation to finance their resistance to Allied forces, but ironically, no, it's the CIA that's actually running and paying, as I mentioned, Karzai's brother, for the shipment of the opium through the Golden Crescent route. And it's the Afghan Taliban had banned opium cultivation nationwide, so we know that's a lie. How and when this business of drug production and trafficking started in the region, I think one can ask. The CIA has been using drug money since long ago to generate money to support its operations all over the world. It didn't start in Afghanistan, folks. We know that. It was brought here after experimenting somewhere else, and experimenting somewhere else before that. This is something which is, in fact, will never be a lead story in the international media for obvious reasons, despite the fact that it's really destroying the lives of many people. The CIA, on really its most active and dynamic intelligence setups in the world, needs massive amounts of money to carry on its clandestine operations all over the world. So to feed the actual crime habits, how are they getting their money? Well, they turn a profit on the drugs. The CIA used local sources to conduct coups, assassinations, regime change. We know this. We've got a long history of supporting democracy by hook and crook until and unless a dictator is ready to serve U.S. interests to prolong its rule. And we've seen operations like the one completed back in Iran in 1953. People talk about that operation that took out Prime Minister Mossadegh and instead backed the Shah's regime by using assets in civil society. But how many know why? In Iraq in 1975, to arm the Kurds to destabilize the pre-Saddam Iraq, and even in Pakistan to pave the way for supposed direct intervention in Pakistan under the pretext of hunting al-Qaeda. Right. Once again, the CIA arranges revenue from its own means for these operations, where expenses can't be predicted by any measure, and the funds from the White House always need a complete audit. They need detailed reports about usage. Well, there are so many occasions when the CIA doesn't share details with anyone. And, of course, they are using our military men and women today, ladies and gentlemen, to take this opium, to engage in the opium trade. And there's blood being shed over this. Unbelievable. It's just difficult. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. And the banks are involved in this, and big money is involved in this. And I can go on, and we will throughout this audio. Let's go and get the information. And go ahead. It's a 6-minute audio. We'll play most of it. Yeah, I'm going to make sure most of the facts and details get in. Here it is from our...
Now, opium farmers in Afghanistan are expecting a record harvest this year, bringing huge profits for warlords and heroin traffickers. Poppy production continues to spread at a staggering pace, with some growers claiming government officials are taking a cut from the lucrative business. Well, let's now take a look at this map here. Opium cultivation, as you can see, has spiked by more than a third in 2013, according to the latest UN report. And that's despite international efforts to curb it, with yields up by several thousand tons. Afghanistan's share in the global supply of illicit opiates is likely to hit 90% by the end of this year. And it's easy to see why farmers give in to the temptation to grow illegal crops, with the profits dwarfing those from traditional agriculture. Artie's Ganesh Chikan investigates the problem.
Opium production has increased 40 times in Afghanistan since NATO started its war on terror in 2001. And now the drug money goes to fund terror and God knows what else, not to mention, of course, thousands of lives taken by heroin consumption every year. But expect more drugs coming out of Afghanistan because the value of opium is so much higher than any other crop available to Afghan farmers that Afghans are not planning on giving up on poppies anytime soon. Even though the mullahs, tribal leaders, and the Afghan government publicly denounce opium production, according to Afghan farmers, they still manage to tax them for that. And this is what one farmer said. Government officials grow opium themselves, and if they don't grow it themselves, they rent out their land to farmers who grow it. If the officials don't care about the law, there is no reason for us to respect it. That's according to this farmer. For more than a decade, NATO and the U.S., of course, and the government that it had put in place in Kabul have refused to impose a clear ban on poppy growing, possibly thinking such a ban would turn more people against the U.S. But here's how U.S. officials explain it.
It isn't just trying to eradicate poppy and opium, it's also trying to give people an alternative mechanism to live and to feed their families.
But there is so much money behind narcotics that even with alternative ways to make a living, it's very difficult to imagine that such massive drug production will stop unless there is a clear-cut ban on it. In Washington, I'm Ganesh Chekyan.
Well, let's cross live now to Kabul to talk to Jean-Luc Lemieux. He's the head of the UN Drug Control Agency in Afghanistan and neighboring countries. Thank you so much, Mr. Lemieux, for joining us here on RT to discuss the situation. As I understand, you are in Afghanistan. So what more can you tell us about the situation on the ground?
Well, the situation on the ground is obviously very worrying. Since 2010, we have witnessed now for the third time in a row cultivation growth, leading in 2013 to an absolute record of 209,000 hectares of opium. This fits within the wider illicit economy, which seems to be on a boom here in Afghanistan, and that combined with the contraction in the illicit economy does not bode well for the future of Afghanistan.
But who or what would you blame for such a staggering scale of drug production in Afghanistan? In your opinion, who is to blame?
Well, I mean, let's not start a finger pointing because there's an international shared responsibility here. Evidently, we expect the Afghan government to do a lot more than what we have witnessed so far on the opium cultivation. But the wider region and the international community at large have a stake in this problematics. Don't forget that on the total Afghan opiates profits made globally, $68 billion, less than 10% remains in Afghanistan. So we need to take up our share of the responsibilities. And when we study a little closer what has happened, then there is a kind of a paradox. On one hand, we see that within the counter-narcotic institutions, we have made tangible progress. More is being seized. The Ministry of Counter-Narcotics has policies set out. The demand reduction services have increased as well. But
how would you,
and that's the paradox,
yes.
when you look at the overall addiction rates,
how would you describe in general,
rates, yes. Then you see an increase.
How would you describe the actions of the government,
so
the effort of the government? Exactly. No, the question also is how would you describe the governmental effort to tackle the problem?
Well, the issue is that so far the narcotics has been considered as a rather marginal issue, siloed in an insular manner within the counter-narcotic institutions. And that, of course, is a big mistake. That is something which we need to correct now. It cannot be left to counter-narcotics institutions only. We need to make sure that the development agencies, that the security actors, that everybody plays a role in this. And it's not only, and definitely we need to provide for alternative livelihoods for the farmers, but it's not only this. We need to stop the impunity, the fragmentation, and this illicit economy which allows people to grow, cultivate opium in a way which remains unpunished today.
And what, in your opinion, could be done to perhaps revert the statistics there or somehow derail this, what seems to be an unstoppable process? Very briefly, if you could.
It is not an unstoppable issue. We can't stop it. The remedies are known, but we need now to have the political will of all involved to make this to happen. As long as the security and development aid agents are worried to get involved in narcotics because they don't consider it it as being their business, then we will continue with this evil. I mean, we need to make sure that all involved get involved and that we get a comprehensive framework together, an integrated framework. We can not talk about an opium farmer any longer. We talk about the Afghan farmer. An Afghan farmer grows different crops, and among them opium. If you don't have an integrated agriculture policy dealing with illicit crops as well, then we are bound to fail as well in the future. So we need to correct the situation now as soon as feasible.
All right, Mr. Limanio, thank you so much for talking to me here on RT and discussing the situation in Afghanistan regarding drug production.
Okay, that was I think that was a
that played all the way through.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
I thought there was another 30 seconds more to that. Well, folks, you know what? The impetus behind tonight's program, is a friend of mine. In fact, if you go on our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, there's a sound clip of this intelligence-connected source. We're going to bring him on the air.
Yeah, and I'll find the link.
And let him. Okay.
Clip and post in the chat room. It was called Intelligence Insider.
Right.
And it was maybe 2 months ago or so. We did an interview off air and posted it on SoundCloud on an article.
And I've got to tell you, folks, this gentleman is the real deal. And I wish I could give you just 1/10 of his background. I can't speak to it other than the fact that I consider him a friend. I consider it an honor to know him. And he's been there. He's done it.
Very smart man.
And that's right. So with that, we're going to bring him on right now. And pay very close attention. This is a rare opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to hear the facts about what's going on from someone who's been there, been in the thick of it. Sir, welcome.
How you doing, Doug?
Very well.
You know, I was listening to the show, and I know you guys are just buried today, getting ready to head out of town, and I saw this note from the UN report, and I was trying to give you a little extra show prep, I guess. But this really gets under my skin, and I just think it goes to the heart of so many of the stories that we're talking about and watching, and from my career, this repetitive cycle that once I reached a certain point, I realized. And the guys that I was with realized, this isn't anything new. I had a real old school partner. He was from way back in the day, and he says, "You think this is new? This drug dealing? That's how the Roosevelts got their money. Where do you think all that Roosevelt money came from? They were huge into the opium dealing out of Hong Kong. They controlled it. That's how they got the family money to get into politics. What was the mobster trying to do in The Godfather? Go legit. What was the theme? It's the Roosevelts. It's the Kennedys. Where did they get the money? Bootlegging. Where it was illegal. People died. Those Tommy guns in the shows that you see, that's the real deal. People were being killed all over the place. St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Little kids with bombs blowing up going into the grocery store. That was the real world. That's what brought Elliot Ness into that whole thing. Was because they're blowing each other up and shooting the streets up and down the streets. What do you think it looks like in Detroit right now? Where's that all coming from? That's the drugs. And it's a hybrid. It's not the mob only. It's the political mob. When they showed that stuff in the Godfather movie, that was the real deal. Out there paying off a senator or getting a senator under their thumb with a scam where he's now, he's made his bones with the dead hooker. That's what's going on in Washington. Remember what's his name? $10,000 in a shoe. His wife comes home. There's $10,000 in a shoe. The other one's got $80,000 in the refrigerator in the freezer, keeping it on ice. I mean, these guys are getting paid off, and it's not all just lobbyists. And you look at the situation right now. You raise the Amber Lions thing. it wasn't Washington, was my understanding. That money that came in there to pay off CNN, not to run the story. You think you're getting honest news out there? Pay them off not to run the story about what's really going on in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. That was the Saudis, man. Saudis, where are they all? Do you think that coordination and assistance was coming from Benghazi?
Just as we said. Yep.
The Saudis are all over that. We're doing their bidding. Our blood, our guts, our State Department, our government is doing their bidding. We're their intelligence gathering asset. We're their boy going out doing their stuff. Come on. People need to wake up. You're not getting the truth in these other media sources. And these elections that are happening with these people getting into office, it was the line of drug money that got Clinton elected, besides the Chinese money. Never came out in the public hardly at all. It was there, but it was there. Didn't really talk about it. It's this whole drug aspect with this hybrid money laundering drug crowd working hand in hand with the mobsters. Crime Inc. in Washington, D.C. I mean, we're just running Crime Inc. here. Oh, there's a lot of legitimate politicians and there's a lot of good ones. That's like going to Washington and not seeing that the Washington Monument is a ritualistic phallic symbol standing right there in the middle of town for that crowd. They're laughing at you. They do it right in your face, and then it's all done. So it's all very prim and proper, and it's all okay. It's not okay. Decent people don't do this stuff. Decent people don't put up with this stuff. And that's where the problem is. Our country's being driven off the freaking track because people aren't standing up and saying, this isn't right. We're decent people. We're not going to go down this path this way. And we're going to protect the drug dealers? That's the whole point of Tillman. The guy was fragged because he was going to come back and lead the anti-war effort. Because he went there as a true American. Mom, apple pie, baseball, football. And he realized, oh my God, I'm being used. My citizenship, my patriotism is being turned against me. My desire to do the right thing for my neighbors, for my family, for my future children is being used against me. People are laughing about it because he's a patriot and he's just enough to go do their work. This is not playtime. Look at Syria. We're talking about 4 people that died. No idiot. We're talking about 150,000 plus dead. Because a political mob has a plan to go make some oil money and get control of some drug dealing and keep their little political power going for the next 1,000 years. You're all slaves if you don't get this under control, and soon, Foley and Webb, and they're closing the escape routes. There isn't much time left. And if you don't do something, you got to answer to Pat Tillman when you get to the other side. They took him out. For a long time, he was the most dangerous man in the world. And he might still be. They killed him to shut him up. That friendly fire wasn't from the enemy on the other side. It was from the enemy within. And we don't have much time, and being prim and proper and nice about it isn't going to save your kid's life. They're going to use your family, your kids, your economy. And by the way, because we're not being as useful, we didn't go to Syria. They'll take your dollar out, and then you won't be any effective at all. You won't be a threat at all anymore. We haven't got much time to get this under control. These political hybrid mobsters, money mobsters, drug mobsters, you going to tell me that this third-rate for brains Titian from Crime Inc. Chicago branch office suddenly becomes president in a legitimate election? Are you kidding me? Really? His whole history is Spaceman, CIA, the whole family. And he gets in charge, he gets in control, he gets to become president? Yeah, because he's just a figurehead. It's not about him. It's about the people that got him there. He's just a useful idiot himself. He's just a face guy. I'm not even mad at him. I pray for him. I feel horrible that this man, he doesn't even realize, really, I don't think he's ever had an honest, real chance to look at his life ever in his whole life, because he's been manipulated. He's been a toy. He's been a puppet of other people who had their designs on him. He's got a soul. He's a human being. And there's a lot of other people, just like Pat Tillman. He was trying to do the right thing, live the dream, be a true American, set his own personal interests aside to do what's right for his country, his neighbors, God, and humanity. And then he gets there, and he finds out everything he thought, everything he realized, everything he knew, it wasn't true. He was being used, and we're being used.
Absolutely.
That's all I got to say. I mean, I hope that I'm sorry I get so upset, but it's important. We haven't got long. They're closing the exits. Wake up.
What do we need to do? What do we need to do? What can we do? What should we do?
If you can't get an honest election, you got no hope. If they can intimidate you at the election, but if they can get the electronic election and nobody's in there to count the votes and get it right, we've had the election problems all along. We know that, that the Nixon election was thrown. No question about it. We know that we got all these votes. What, you going to tell me that 100% of the votes in all these different jurisdictions there in Pennsylvania went all Obama all the time? Those whole voting things are so screwed up. And how did you ever get that in there? Who got paid off to do that? We've had election problems. That's what Tammany Hall was all about in New York.
That's
throwing
true.
all the elections there and deciding who could even get on the election thing to become elected. You know, you're not getting a fair election. If you're not getting a fair election, everything else is moot because you got, you know, that's what Alan Hughes said. It doesn't matter who gets elected. It's two sides of the same coin. He got it. He got it. I didn't understand it at the time. I thought he was out of his mind. He wasn't. Two sides of the same coin. You think you're getting something different? Doesn't matter which side you get. Two sides of the same coin. Why? Because of the money. They're being bought off.
Right.
And the only way you can do it.
You're not saying we should vote our way through it. You're saying the election.
No, we need to be monitoring, paying attention, and deciding that we're not going to just buy into the crap. Remember, anybody that says that it's useless, it's futile, we can't stop it, we can't change it. Well, we stopped Syria. They were hell-bent for election going into Syria for 2 years. And they're not through, by the way. But we didn't save it all. There's a lot of people dead over there. But we might have held off enough time to buy a little time to maybe try to pull this back from the brink. Even this whole thing, you know, it's the end of the world and you know, roll over and they're going to hang everybody, chop their head off. They're going to go, listen, get in there and fight. better a live dog than a dead lion. And I don't mean take up arms. I mean, you know, when the people in Poland got control of their government, they went in the streets and prayed and just stopped working. They said, we're done. We're not doing another thing until this gets under control. They did days off and out of protest. They let it, let them stew on it. They were able to bring it down. At some level, better pray. Some of these solutions aren't going to happen just even with effort alone. This is something outside of even just the physical side. There's other components here that we have to be aware of. So I could talk more detailed things that we could do, but I think at some level, the first step is that people have to stop just even being willing to accept a lie, to even just not want to dig deeper and know the truth. How can you even act if you don't know the true facts? If they can shut up Amber Lyons and she don't get an honest report, then how can you form an honest opinion? And when she did great work and then it's shut off, okay, so where are you going to get an honest opinion? What's going on? If they can just buy it off, you're supposedly getting the real news from CNN and they can be bought off. And of course, the question was that part of what was going on CBS? And if some of what happened there doesn't quite add up yet. I don't know, maybe there wasn't anything happen, but it seems to me that if they could buy off CNN, somebody could play with the news over there at CBS. We certainly know that they decided not to air all of the pieces of the interview on after Benghazi with the president the next day. We know that there was stuff all the way back to Rather. That's not just Rather. That's not just one person making a wrong decision. That's like a culture. And you can feed that culture by, looking at it. It's like these universities where the only professors that get promoted are the ones that think like Marxists and liberals and things like that. In outer space, there's no at least even-handedness. They create a culture where the only way you can move up the ladder is if you think a certain way, and if you don't kind of tip your, eyebrow the right way, they know, well, yeah, he doesn't think like us. We don't want him around us. Well, that's the same thing with the media. If you're going to accept to listen to that kind of crap when they won't give an honest story, look at the stuff they're reporting on CNN at the same time that, and then go to YouTube and look at the report that Amber Lyons actually did and compare the two. See what you were given and what was actually done with the hard work. The real cry there, to me, is that CNN, I think, clearly was used before she did the report. Because what did she do? She went in and ferreted out and got interviews with all the people that were resisting, and then made it easy for the Saudis to go in and identify all the problem children and disappear them. She wasn't not allowed to air her report. Her work, her investigation, her interviews became Saudi Intel's, Bahrainian Intel's intelligence reports. They know where to target.
Right.
So that's like a whole different animal now. Now you're talking about what? You're talking about, literally under the auspices of doing the good thing, being the bad guy. The media wasn't the good guy. The media was the bad guy. Looking to stifle free speech and some kind of resistance. We're experiencing kimchi here because I think if that kind of stuff gets to here, and if it's happening in other news subjects, if you can't get an honest report, if you can't get honest news, if what you're being told is just lies all the time, 100%, you're on shifting sand. You can't make an honest, square, fair decision. If you don't know where you really stand, how can you order your life, order your country? We just put the whole country's life on hold. Our finances, put it right to the wall to do what? To protect somebody else's drug trade going into Europe and Canada? Really? And now we're about to do this in North Africa. What do you think the rest of the story is in North Africa? That's the drug pipeline to Europe from South America. It's arms going one way and drugs going the other, and that's the same story we had back to Iran-Contra.
So
this is a serious moment.
Okay.
This is a serious moment. We don't have much time because they're closing the final little gaps in their web. They want a new world order. They're going to get it. We got to resist. From a biblical perspective, they don't get it. Why don't they get it? Because God's people don't let them get it.
That's right.
But it's not because they just roll over and get glassy-eyed and say, well, I don't stand for that. They say, I'm not lending my support to it. I don't have an exact answer. But somebody in this whole country, and it could be 10 grandmas from across the country, 10 mothers who come up with the right idea. When Galtieri was down in Argentina, was doing the stuff he was doing, and they were disappearing young people off the streets for protesting against the government. It was mothers who went out in the streets one day a week with pictures of their kids and paraded around the Capitol and on the streets of the various cities with the pictures of their sons and daughters who'd been disappeared, who had been resisting what was going on. And they got control back of their government. They got guys in jail. I don't have the exact answer. God help us, somebody probably does. They better come forward and try to help us. At the very least, you can't even get to the right answer if you're not admitting you're not getting told the truth, or if you're accepting these lies. It's like this healthcare thing. How did that get that way? How did we get this in this debacle? Even people's willingness to end up, no, well, it's an okay system and they're just trying to help us. It's mobsters trying to grab the last big piece of cheese in the economic system here in the U.S. to close you in on their last little thing to, change the way we operate as a country.
That's amazing.
Anyway,
wow.
I want to let you get to the rest of the show.
Thank you.
I appreciate you letting me have a couple minutes. And I apologize if it sounds like I'm just ranting, but I'm sort of conveying the blood boiling as best I can. And, I hope that it's received in the right way. I'm not saying, go smack some guy on the nose. God gave me power in my arm and I smacked all those guys in the nose. That's not what I'm saying at all. There are creative ways, and somewhere in this audience, there's men, women, gentlemen, ladies, grandmas, grandpas who have some ideas about some answers that might just work. Resistance that's appropriate, correct?
Yeah. And
we are gentlemen, and we are not heathens. We're not trying to create the chaos that feeds right into their plan. When they went into the streets in Poland, it wasn't chaos. It was very orderly. When they went into the streets in Argentina and the mothers marched, it was very orderly. But they didn't just sit at home and wring their hands and fret. And they didn't accept it when people around them just said, well, yeah, I think you're not really being, you don't understand. They really mean good. They don't mean good. They mean to put you under their control. They mean good like Al Capone meant good. Oh, but he helps us out with turkeys at Thanksgiving. Oh, my gosh, give me a break.
Hey, I want to thank you so much. God bless you,
and I do appreciate all of your audience. The guests have been wonderful, and we're all just fighting through to try to get to the right answer. And
that's right.
I appreciate you letting me have a moment. And all of your audience is in my prayers every day. That we hear what God's trying to tell us, and that He brings good, honest, godly men and women to your audience with the right information, the right message to get on track. And that is, I pray for every ear out there that they have ears to hear the right stuff. And if we miss it on something, if we're not snack on, that just, goes by the wayside. I hope that we're on the right track on stuff. And if we're not, that's part of the reason for the rest of the audience too. They can yard us in and say, well, wait a second. There's a little different direction on this, and that's part of the audience too. I'm glad that that's there. I hear some people say things from time to time, and I have to stop and go, well, wait a second. Yeah, I hadn't quite thought of it that way, including Joe, by the way. So.
Well,
all right, bro.
Got the nurse
I'll let you guys get back to it. I appreciate you letting me have a moment to just say what I had to say.
No, I'm glad you did. God bless you, my friend. Stay safe out there. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Wow.
All right. Bye.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a great friend of mine, a friend of the program, a friend of ours, and very tightly connected in the intelligence world. Probably one of a handful of people that I would ever trust my life to, and I'll just leave it at that. He's brought more solid information with respect to Benghazi, Syria, and the plans of the New World Order than part of the eye-opening experience that I've gone through is to he aside from Steve Quayle and others like Steve Quayle, those behind the scenes, this gentleman behind the scenes who would spend hours upon hours talking to me, and sometimes ranting, to get the point across, because sometimes you have to. And when I say hours, I mean hours upon hours, but it's all part of the learning process. So what he said there is absolutely 100% correct, if you think about it. And look at the examples he used about Poland and Argentina. We can do this. We can delay. We can be a force to reckon with. And even if you're an old grandfather like me, I'm not that old. But no matter who you are, what your station in life is, you can make a difference.
Absolutely.
So
we're gonna go to the top of the hour break. We're gonna take phone calls the rest of the show as we go through other news stories during the calls, and we can talk about anything you guys want to talk about. Absolutely, whatever it is that's on your mind.
The phone line's open. 661-244-9839. 661-244-9839. We're going to throw them open. But Crime Inc., America Today. And by the way, think about this. America is at war, and we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of Kennedy, and there is not one parent thinking over the destruction of a child who really believes that drug abuse is a self-inflicted crime. There is not one person in America who should believe that the assassinations of our presidents from Kennedy backward should believe that they happened for reasons that we are told. We are living, or we're surrounded and engulfed in huge lies, and we're trying to expose these lies through our program.
Absolutely. With that, we're going to go to break right now. We're going to come back in 3 minutes and take your calls. So get in the queue, and we're going to be right back. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this, gentlemen, hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Thursday edition, and some housekeeping before we take a call. Tomorrow, we are not going to be live, but we will have a show. It will be a rebroadcast, and an important one, a must-listen to if you did not hear it. The episode we had with Paul McGuire, we are going to have that rebroadcasted tomorrow, as we will be with Russ Dizdar in the conference in Canton, Ohio.
I believe.
And you're muted.
That's why I hear my echo like that. I believe this will be the first time, Joe, that we've actually taken a day and not done a live show, even when we're traveling, is it?
Nope. When we were in North Carolina, we had to put up a rebroadcast because we weren't still on the road because of the tropical storm we ran into.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. We planned on being live, but the weather had prevented that.
Yeah, remember we called in to give the explanation about that while we were still on the road.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, my memory's failing me.
Yeah. I remember. Thank you, Troy, he set that up last minute. So
yeah, thanks, Troy.
That was fun. Driving through that typhoon. Anyway, we're going to go to the phone lines. Area code 909. We're coming to you first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What is on your mind tonight?
Oh, hello. I was married to a targeted individual, and you've probably heard of him. He wrote Blade Runner and Minority Report.
Okay.
His name was Philip K. Dick.
Okay. And you're his wife?
Well, I was. He's been gone since '82.
Well, I understand that, but right, you're. He was the gentleman who wrote the short story, the novelist. He was a novelist, right?
Novels and stories.
I'm sorry?
Novels and stories.
Right. Okay. Right. He was a van. Your first name is Leslie, right?
Well, it used to be. Now it's Tessa.
Okay.
Mom always called me Tess.
Okay. All right. I know who you are, and yes, we know Philip K. Dick. We know who he is. We know the story behind him. My goodness. But go on, my dear.
Well, I believe, as he did, that his mother put him into some kind of government-sponsored program when he was a child. But I don't think that's why he was targeted as an adult. I think he told the truth in too many of his novels. He ended up with his house broken into in a military-style raid, and thank God he was not at home when it happened. He fled the country and was kidnapped there, and they tried to suicide him, but he lived. And down here, while I was,
No, I remember, and correct me if maybe you can enlighten us on the story. Supposedly, he had some sodium pentothal type of an objection for some sort of a dental issue or something. Didn't that have something to do with his? Because I consider him, in the scheme of things, like a precursor to Tom Clancy, who had a heart attack, but because he knew too much, or was heart attack. But wasn't there some issue with his? He had some dental work done and was given some drugs, and of course that kind of led to certain things. Okay, all right. Then we're thinking
It was February of 1974. He had an abscessed molar extracted under probably sodium brevitol, but we generically call all those drugs pentothal or truth serum. He also was given Percodan for the pain after he went home, and he began to see flashes of light and to hear voices. But just recently, I've begun to suspect that they actually put some kind of object in his jaw that picked up radio signals.
Huh. Okay. Wow.
Because he was hearing voices telling him to kill himself. And there was a vacant apartment next door where there was all kinds of electronic gadgets that just might have been transmitting to him.
And I've heard about this, and I'm glad you called because early on, well, not early on, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, right after the Clancy situation, the Clancy death, I was researching some things. I came across the name Philip K. Dick, and was because there's a forum that I do occasionally look at and brought up names, and his name was one of them as perhaps having some CIA intel or knowing, like you said, knowing too much. Was he in contact with the CIA?
Not that I know of, but there was before I met him, there was a man in his circle who claimed to belong to an agency so secret that even the CIA didn't know about them.
Okay.
And he tried to recruit Phil, but Phil wouldn't go for it.
Do you think, ma'am? Do you think that Phil was targeted, like we'll say, like the Navy Yard shooter, with bombarded with electronic frequencies, and perhaps that led him into these areas that we're referencing here, the experiences that he had?
Well, I don't think they intended for him to have a religious experience. I think that was the result of fervent prayer. But they had wanted to use him as some sort of courier because it would be easy for an author to travel to countries in the Eastern Bloc. And he was offered a trip to Poland, but he turned it down. He was kind of frightened because the Soviet Union was still the Soviet Union back then.
Wow.
It was all very strange, and he preferred that people consider him insane because he felt that would keep him safe.
So that was a ruse then.
Yeah.
Okay. And well, you would know, you had lived with him at the time.
It was a Minimax game strategy. It won't help you win, but it will ensure that you don't lose.
Oh, interesting. Okay. How did this play out? For the audience, for the sake of the audience, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to the widow of Philip K. Dick. He passed away in 1982. How did this play out with him? Because his experiences obviously were, I'm going to say, related to something that happened with his medical or his dental condition, and perhaps something was implanted or something was done during a surgery, during the extraction of a molar or wisdom tooth, one of the big teeth you've got in your mouth. And of course, sometime, since that time, or subsequent to that time, he was experiencing some things. But how did that? So okay, he had visions, I suppose. How would you describe that? Visions?
Yeah, visions. Mostly just flashing lights and images that look like abstract art, the kind that Paul Klee or Kandinsky might have painted.
Okay.
But here and there he would, while lying in bed but not sleeping, he would experience someone sitting on a chair next to him and having a conversation. And I was there, and nobody was there.
Okay.
But as I used to tell Phil, as long as they don't tell you to get naked at the airport, you're okay.
Even back then, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I can only imagine what it would have been like to live with this gentleman. I mean, what an interesting experience, to be sure.
It was awesome.
Wow. Now he had help me out here. He had published something like, I don't know, 4 dozen books or 4 dozen novels, or it was an incredible number of books that he had published, and even short stories. Yeah, Blade Runner, of course.
I think the
known.
official numbers are 40 novels and 150 short stories.
Wow.
But
okay.
a number of his manuscripts were lost, so he actually wrote them.
Well, Blade Runner, which became a movie, and it was a science fiction thriller starring Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Okay, was that inspired? I mean, what inspired him to write Blade Runner? Were you what during that time? What inspired him to do that? To write that science fiction thriller?
Well, he had noticed for some time that some people seemed to lack empathy, and he wondered whether they were real or some kind of simulacrum. And he wrote a number of novels about simulacra, which were basically robots. But in Blade Runner, rather than robots, he decided that these were going to be basically clones, people grown in laboratories and not having parents and not being socialized and not having souls.
See, that's what makes me think that he had a vision of the future, or knew of what was coming, because that's what we're seeing today. Many people would argue.
Yeah. Well, he had many glimpses of the future that you'll find things in novels from the 1960s that are just real today, but they were total fantasy then.
Did you ever wonder where he got? I know that we had kind of gone over this, but did you ever wonder where his foresight and brilliance of foresight came from? I mean, or did you ever ask him directly, "Hey, do you know something we don't know?" It's kind of sort of thing. I mean, because I wouldn't even have the imagination to think up at that time things like the brilliant work of Blade Runner, for example.
Well, he always credited the Holy Spirit, but he did read magazines like Popular Science and speculate from the current research in the popular press. So it didn't come out of thin air.
Yeah.
But he was able to see connections between things that other people did not see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I do know, and this is from, like I said, after hearing about Tom Clancy and doing some research from that. I just happened to pull my notes out in preparation for this conference tomorrow. In fact, I believe your husband, and in fact, you and your husband both might have had some acquaintances who were involved in the FBI and other alphabet agencies. Is that a fair statement, or am I off on that?
Well, I don't consciously know of any contact with the FBI that I might have had. His first wife, Cleo, did, because she had joined a communist student organization up in Berkeley.
Oh, that's who I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
But
wow.
I try to stay clear of such things, but I'm not always successful.
Wow. Well, now his death. I know that in February of '82, he had some issues where he was complaining of certain medical, physical problems. Did you find him unconscious in your home? And he suffered a stroke, I believe.
No, he was found by friends we were not living together at the time, but apparently I saw him on Tuesday, and one of his biographers, Greg Rickman, saw him on Wednesday, and then on Thursday he was found unconscious because he didn't show up for a regular meeting that he went to with friends. Anyway, he was not taking his blood pressure medication, and I just think he probably did not want to go on.
Wow.
It's sad, but it wasn't quite as mysterious as these recent deaths. I keep forgetting names. The car crash.
Michael Hastings, and he was a reporter. Yeah. And then, again, one of the biggest, what really got me was Tom Clancy. And I know that people can say, well, he's 66 and older, but I don't know.
There's some mysterious circumstances with a lot of people.
Well, if they didn't kill him, they probably wanted to.
Man. Well, certainly we respect his work. At least I do, anyway. If you look at the Blade Runner and some of the other works, and for the life of me, I'm trying to remember. Total Recall was the other one that I recall. I remember. Very interesting.
Well,
so, wow.
The movie was nothing like his story. Most of them are not.
That's true. That's very true.
The Minority Report was very much like his body of work. It's the most faithful in that sense. But still did not have car chases and explosions. Here and there an explosion, but really nothing like the movies.
Well, you know what? You bring up Minority Report, and folks, I want to tell you, Minority Report you've got to remember this, but this is 10 years ago now. I think it came out as a movie, but the book, the work itself by Mr. Dick was I think was one of the original ones that talked about pre-crime. Wasn't that it? Being pre-crime issues. So look at what's happening today. Look how interesting this is, how life is imitating art, or perhaps something else. Very true. Very, very interesting. Well, my dear, I want to thank you for your call. How did you hear about our program? This is great.
Some friends of mine from Freedomizer Radio sent me over here a while back, and you had Steve Quayle on, so I just had to listen.
Okay. Wow. Is there anything in closing that you want to say?
Oh, just thank you for having me on, and it's a great show. Even when you don't have Steve Quayle, it's a great show.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to pass that along to Steve. I'm going to tell him you said hello. Steve's going to be on Sunday too, as well. We're going to have a special show on Sunday, so Steve's going to be with us on Sunday. So you can get your Steve Quayle tickets there. Yeah. But in the meantime, I'll definitely tell him that you said hello and popped in and talk to our audience. What a great call.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in.
Fantastic.
And the wife of...
Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is. God bless you, ma'am, and you take care.
And you too.
All right. Thanks for the call.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Wow, something. It's so amazing, Joe. I'm looking here at my notes, and I had grabbed these in prep for the conference, and I was looking through this, and let's see, where is it? Right here. Hang on a second, I'll find it. Yeah, here it is, right here. Philip K. Dick. Okay, and isn't that interesting? March 2nd, 1982 is when he passed away. And there were some notes here about that. How weird is that? I mean, seriously, we did not solicit that phone call.
No,
that's just really, really odd, folks. We've got. And by the way, I want to say this. I received a note yesterday that there's a small group of people in Hollywood who are bucking the system, and they listen to our show, and some include names that you'd be familiar with, and so some are pretty controversial. I'll just leave it at that. Some I'm sure you can figure out based on Alex+Jones and stuff like that. But and one of these days, hopefully, we might have one of them call in. We'll see what happens. But anyway,
yeah. Remember Charles Strange's mother called in.
Oh yeah, and Charles Strange and his mother. It's just, we are so blessed to have the audience we have. And
yes, we are. When we were on Full Spectrum Survival show today, we talked about the audience we have and how it is the reason that the show has given us the platform we have. One of the reasons the Lord's doing. One of the only reasons, yeah. The other reason that we have the platform we do, and we are so blessed and fortunate. If there ever comes a time where we're not doing a show for whatever reason, we're going to look back on this time and say,
wow,
yeah,
but we're gonna keep doing the shows until we're forced off the air by or until our breaths give out. No matter where we are. And that was another issue we talked about today, just as an aside very quickly, is continuing our broadcast in the event of a Internet 2.0 type of situation. We have to, as well, as we get through calls, we have to talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty as well.
I'd like to
that's going to affect
a few headlines as we do take calls. One is that, what you just talked about.
Right.
The first, Obama claims enforcement discretion to make Obamacare changes. Now, we talked about this.
Man.
This story today from the Washington Times says Obama said Thursday that what's good for illegal immigrants is also good for people who are losing their health insurance because of Obamacare, saying he'll use prosecutorial discretion to let companies continue to offer health plans that violate his law.
Right.
The latest example of the White House trying to work around Congress and instead take action on its own, and in this case, it comes as Mr. Obama seeks to stop a wholesale abandonment of his health law by Democrats who have watched the rocky rollout. We put a grandfather clause into the law, but it was insufficient, the president said at the White House as he announced the new loophole he has created. Under this loophole, Mr. Obama will leave it up to the state health insurance commissioners to decide which substandard plans can still be offered by insurance companies, and has pledged that his administration will not penalize them for still offering those plans, even though they violate the Affordable Health Care Act. The extension will last only 1 year. Now, it goes on to say Republicans are skeptical that the administration had the authority to grant the exceptions to the law, and they argue the only solution is to change the law through legislation. House Republicans have a bill set for the floor action Friday, and it goes on to say, but briefing reports ahead of the time, an administration official said that they believe they have the authority to suspend enforcement for 1 year. Now, remember the government shutdown. This is what the Republicans were asking Obama for, was a delay of the individual mandate, and they asked, and he said, I will not be held hostage. And
it's all theater, Joe.
Right. So
it's all theater.
He blames the government shutdown on them and turns around, and as soon as the government shutdown's over, goes ahead and offers up what they were asking for after saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to compromise with you. And it's just so silly.
In between the show that we recorded for Full Spectrum Survival and this show and other things, as I was getting ready for, you talk about quick, stop in the studio, do the recording, then leave, run to the post office. I ran to the post office, and I don't know, two things. On my way to the post office, Herman Cain was on. I don't know whether you've heard his radio show or not.
Yes, I've listened to, he's had some very good parts, and then he's had some parts where I wonder if it's the same person.
Well, yeah, there almost seems to be this inconsistency behind Mr. Cain, and we see this in other talk shows as well. But with him, it's pretty blatant, as if he's on a roll, and then somebody taps him on the shoulder and says, "Hey, wait a minute, you can't go down that road." So he does a 180.
I'd say he's better than most because he does seem to speak from the heart, he doesn't hold back with his true feelings, and they're usually pretty. From what I've heard, I only hear it if I'm in the car and it's on.
But I think he was missing the point, because I really believe, like I said the other day, that I believe that the whole objective of this chaos surrounding the healthcare is to usher in a single-payer system to nationalize the entire economy, the 1/6 of the economy, and to nationalize the healthcare law itself and the healthcare industry. That's what I believe is and they're using the Cloward-Piven strategy and the Hegelian dialectic to accomplish these objectives. But it just so happened when I was listening to that, and they were talking about the chaos, and of course Herman Cain made it, and his callers and his they made it a Republican-Democrat issue, and we know it's far more than that. But it just so happened when I picked up my mail, I looked at one of the letters that I received, and it was addressed to me from my insurance company. And now understand this: my insurance carrier canceled me. They sent me a letter of cancellation, what is now a month ago, saying effective December 31st, you were no longer insured due to Obamacare. Well, this piece of correspondence said, you're still covered, but we noticed that you owe us $1,127. You're still covered until the 31st of December. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, my premium is that would be like 5 months or not 5 months, maybe let's say 4, I don't know, it's 3.5, 4 months, 3.5 months, something like that, of premiums, and I've paid up to date. So in the midst of everything else, I had to call the insurance carrier today and ask what was going on. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't gotten this, remember, I think we were one of the first radio programs I was one of the first, I think, that got canceled by my carrier, at least publicly stated so. But if you haven't experienced what is next going to be happening at the insurance companies, when I called them, they said everything is so messed up. Now, that's not the word that this guy used, okay? He was really twisted. I mean, he said, look, everything's so screwed up because of what the government is doing and making us do. And those are his words, making us do, that I wouldn't be surprised if you get a bill for 10 times that. And we can work it out here, and figure it out. But the fact is, the government has got their mitts into the mechanics of the insurance industry. It's not pretty, and it's going to get far worse before it gets even better, which is why I'm saying the single health care, the complete nationalization of the insurance industry was the objective all along. And folks, don't lose track of that. And by the way, the Republicans are aiding and facilitating in that. It's all part and parcel. The rest of everything else you see is theater. The Republicans are involved in this. The only way for us to win in this case, in my view, and I got to be careful what I say here. I don't know about you, but I'm going to stand up and say, you know what? I'm not going to play. That's it. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to sign up for your system. You can do whatever you want to do to me, but I'm not going to sign up for your system. And I told my wife today, and she says, well, what happens if, you have a heart attack? I said, look, well, because she knows. In fact, I'm a poster child for, well, no, I think perhaps Larry might be, but never mind. No, she knows that we could lose everything. But losing everything sometimes isn't the worst thing that can happen. And I think that was one of the things that you tried to say the other day. Losing everything is not the worst thing that can happen to you. But I'm not going to play. And if everyone stood up, if everyone listening to this program in the United States stood up and said, we're not going to play. We're not going to sign up. We're not going to play. We're not going to pay the fines. We're not going. In fact, we're going to tell everyone we're going to encourage everyone to engage in the civil disobedience of disobeying the law, Justice Roberts. Then we can win. We can win because there's only 535 of them, 36. It depends on how you count them, but we can win. And once again, and I know you tire of me here, you you tire of me saying this. Much like we can win at the airports. We can win against the TSA if we all stood up together in unison and say, you know what, you're not touching me, you're not touching my mom, you're not touching my daughter, you're not touching anybody. We want to. If everyone went to the airport tomorrow, who is scheduled for a flight tomorrow, everyone said, we're not going to be nuked and we're not going to be touched, and we are going to board the plane, or we're not. Doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to lose, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, if we put our foot down, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? We've got them outnumbered. And remember, my good friend, the intelligence insider who called in, what they did in Poland. They just stopped in Poland. And yes, they stopped. They were organized to the extent where they all stopped at one time and they prayed. It wasn't. They didn't throw rocks and. They didn't act like the weathermen or weather underground. No, they stopped and they had days of prayer, brought the system to a grinding halt, and were able to win based on this civil disobedience. This is what I would recommend. Maybe we should start a day or promote a day. But then when you get into that, then there's a lot of there's many things. I would say everyone should do it at their on their own, but do it. But say no, we're not going to play. We're not going to be a part of this. We're not going to be a part because what's next after this? Joe, you were talking about this, and you've done a lot of great research on this. What's next after this? It's the system that ushers in the mark of the beast system. It's the implants. It's the chips, the RFID chips. What's the expense of this? Our souls.
Absolutely, and they are accelerating the process of scientific discovery to improve this patient care, what they call patient care, through biometric technology and innovation. And they're going to use a lot of what we see today, them saying, helping the people, saving the children. They have strategic initiatives. And some of these read as follows: prevent and reduce tobacco use, help Americans achieve and maintain healthy weight, promote early childhood health development, implementing a 21st century food safety system, accelerate the process of scientific discovery to improve patient care and patient identification, promote program and accountability, transparency,
and they're going to get in our faces in our business.
Right. I mean, and that's why I used. I know tobacco use isn't relevant to RFID, but it is relevant to the measure of invasiveness we'll see on a personal level. It's almost divine. Talking about this divine, because here we are talking about this RFID system and the implementation of that based on the Health Care Act, and here we had the widow of Philip Dick call in and tonight, and Philip Dick was Minority Report, the book behind the 2002 science fiction film, the Steven Spielberg film. Again, it was loosely based on the Minority Report, but the fact of the matter is, the pre-crime, apprehending criminal based on foreknowledge. So the reason I mention that is there is an element there with respect. There's a linkage there to these RFID. I'm trying to think of the name. With the people that have no. She used the. Yeah, I'm told to hit you with a Nerf bat, but
thank you.
You're too fragile. I don't want to bruise or incapacitate you.
Well, whoever told you to hit me with a Nerf bat, hey, you come here and say that to me. I'm just kidding.
It was Larry.
Hey, Larry. No, you're right. It's difficult to talk sometimes, or it's difficult for me to talk. I've got to apologize. I'm. Every once in a while you get that catch in your back if you've ever had herniated discs, and with the pain that comes with the osteophytes, and if you just move just wrong, it takes your breath away, and it takes your mind off of everything else at that moment. And that's where this is coming from, and I must apologize for that. But having said that, but having the widow of Philip Dick call in, and you're talking about people in like Total Recall who are, again, I can't think of the name, but these people without feeling, and could it be, for example, that this is the objective of some of these implants and a lot of the construction, Joe, of these, what would you call them? Not robotics, but there's a name for it. But you get the drift.
No, they talk about robotics and robots. And in 2010, the NIH and FDA announced a collaborative innovative fast track to innovations to the public. Now, this partnership of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the National Institute of Health unveiled a design to accelerate the process from scientific breakthroughs to the availability of new medical therapies for patients. And a few points I just want to make real quick with the medical devices and the language used in all these PDFs and bills. And many people will say, well, medical devices, you could be talking about pacemakers, you could be talking about, and it is talking about that.
And that's what I thought too.
It's also talking about the Class 2 implantable radio frequency transponder system for patient identification and health information. There is a guidance document outlining exactly that. And why would they use language that explains why people are going to have to learn how to use these new medical devices? Why are people making such a big deal of the medical device tax? And why in the world are there 10,000 different PDFs saying the same thing using different words without really just saying it?
Our paper budget went up by about 3,000% over the last month. I've got to tell you.
I went through 3 things of ink and over 5 things of paper.
Right.
Printing out these PDFs.
It's amazing. There's overlap, and I think what you're trying to say, and I think what I saw from what you're reporting on or what you're doing is the overlap of government oversight and government control, the different agencies. Why is Homeland Security? Why is the Department of Defense involved in the Health Insurance Act itself?
DARPA.
Yeah, DARPA. Why?
I mean, you have every government agency and the UN agencies. You have so many. Every single agency, space, the Space Command, is involved.
Yeah, NASA. Well, not NASA.
Space Command. You have so many of these agencies, and they have these executive orders that they use also for the date back far, 1939, some of them. And I wonder,
which is amazing, by the way. The things that you found that date back into the 60s even. Well, they've been planning this. And could it be, and let me ask you this on air, as if you were a guest, Joe, could it be that they had, and I was thinking about this too, could it be that they had this planned out, but they needed a vehicle in which to deploy this system, this mark, this...
and a reason. And Sibelius says this: the mission of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is to protect the health of all Americans and to provide essential human services, especially for those who are least able to help themselves. Sustainability has been defined as the enduring prosperity of all living things.
Oh, man.
By this measure, sustainability is directly linked to the health of humans, the health of the environment, and the health of the economic system.
Okay.
Now, that's religion
and
economic.
Your morality. You're right. It's religious. Go ahead.
And it just says that by this measure, sustainability is directly linked to the health of humans, the environment, and the economic systems that support and promote our well-being. This triple bottom line, human health, environmental health, economic health, is all integrated and integral to the HHS mission and sustainability mandate of Executive Order 13514. Just as the Department of Energy leads innovation relating to energy reduction, HHS innovates relating to health as a well-being as a key part of the federal community. It must assume a leadership role in promoting sustainability in government and public operations and it is an integral part of the HHS mission. And it goes on to state their vision, their goals, their integration of sustainability and climate change resilience into the Health and Human Services mission. I mean, you hear what I'm saying?
How does climate change
they
merge
have,
into this?
I sent you the document. They
I've got the document here. I don't understand how they can merge climate change into the Health and Human Services Initiative.
They have merged environmental justice into it's called the Environmental Justice and Health and Human Services Plan. It is crazy. And it's for your good. It's for your well-being. They're going to need to
pull up a chair to the table here. Pull up a chair to the table. We're going to spread these files out over the table. Why don't you take a look at these? Go up, pull up a chair. You too, Larry. Come on, pull up a chair. Sit down.
I posted some of the links in chat yesterday, but this two guys searched U.S. HHS Strategic Sustainability Performance Plan, and you can read in these plans, this 148-page PDF here, it says, Obama signed an executive order to take a leadership role in promoting sustainability and responding to climate change. Since then, HHS Secretary has made real progress in reflecting of the greenhouse gas emissions, conserving water and other key resources, evaluating risk and vulnerabilities along with climate changes, short and long-term effects, goes on to say. There's a number of scientific panels, including U.S. Global Change Research Program. Intergovernmental panels on climate change have published data already that climate change is already negatively affecting human beings.
And so, if what I'm hearing and seeing from these PDFs, are they saying that climate change, because of the global warming, we'll say, because that's a key phrase, is adversely affecting the quality of life, that this is going to be much like lead paint would be considered like lead paint?
Absolutely. They say that
lead-based paint.
Climate change has a harmful effect on human health, and it will into the future. Hazards linked climate change include more frequent and severe heat waves, droughts, wildfires, heavy rainfall, flooding.
But beyond that, as a patient for the Obamacare, what I'm seeing from global warming or global climate change is what they're saying is this is adversely affecting the health of human beings.
Yep.
And so we're going to classify it as like lead-based paint or even cigarette smoking. So we have to do something about that, be proactive, and of course there goes the money.
Posing a threat.
Right.
So what the HHS is saying, it is a risk. So therefore, it is our responsibility to protect us from that risk of living on this earth.
All right.
So they're going to do this, step in, and provide these essential services. Now, mind you, this is one small plan of an agency publication out of thousands.
And therein lies the key. I believe, too, there is so much to this that we are not privy to, or better said, there's so much that is bearing us. For example, how we have this new tax law that has become so large that try to find anything in this, it's buried within this legalese. So it's hard to understand. And okay,
let me finish with this last couple of sentences here, because this is important. It says that in 2012, Health and Human Services began focusing more on implementation through the development of office guides for non-landholding divisions. In 2012, they conducted and published a high-level vulnerability assessment, Health and Human Services Climate Change Adaptation Plan, to lay the foundation for the resilience efforts. Now, they say there is a gap between conceptualization of its sustainability and climate adaptation plans, the actual implementation of these plans within health and human service programs will be shifting to a more strategic, cross-cutting oversight team, HHS Sustainability and Climate Resilience Task Force. This sounds so nice, doesn't it?
It's actually it's enough to give you a headache. Really.
Well, imagine reading these all day.
Wow.
No, seriously, they have goals. I'm not going to go read through this whole thing, but this is enlisting the Operation Division of Chief Sustainability Officers, Assistant Secretary for the Health, National Institute of Environmental Health Services, National Institute for Science and Technology, and it continues.
Well, I think what people are hearing is really what I hear.
Gibberish?
White noise.
Right.
and that's intended to be that way.
But see, this is the thing. They're saying that the the effects of man-made global warming and man-made negative effects on the environment are so bad that they are going to have to implement and have implemented these plans to keep us safe from ourselves,
right? And
make sure we have clean water and clean air. What plans have they instituted for Fukushima?
But exactly. And therein lies the problem. Fukushima is a huge problem that is not being covered. And in this climate change initiative and HHS adaptation plan, 2 words that we need to watch out for, and we will see a lot of in the near future: eminent domain. That's right.
I mean, the government can come take your property that you own, or at least appear to own.
Well, did you cover, Joe, when you mentioned eminent domain, did you cover the UN Biodiversity Project taking over the Alamo? Did you cover that, or did you see that?
No.
In fact, I think like 4,500 Texans potentially could lose their homes, their property, because of via eminent domain. Through the UN Biodiversity Project, the UN will take over the maintenance and caretaking of the Alamo.
That is...
Yes, folks, look it up. I'm telling you.
I grew up with Davy Crockett.
I remember
I used
your
to have the raccoon
cap.
hat. Yep.
Yeah, I remember. In fact, I remember.
And to know that that's going to be turned over to the UN is not surprising, but sad, because...
Well, look up the UN Biodiversity Project, folks, and understand that we don't have control over national parks and monuments, many of them, because of the United Nations Biodiversity Project. They are actually they have taken control in dominion over many of our national parks. It's not U.S. property. It belongs to the United Nations.
Now, there is one in all of the million PDFs I've read over the last 2 months. Regardless of the agency,
I'll give you 10,000.
There is one overarching theme and or a few that leads to one, and what it is that due to all the dangers and threats, whether it be from terrorism, from weather, from global warming, from whatever they say, mice, that they're going to need to implement a system that first of all will help us and to help them. It'll help them for real-time monitoring of situations, and it'll help us because if we're in danger, they'll understand. They'll know who's where, what at all times. Now, this is the RFID chip, and it is not a theory. It is not a hope. It is the law. I'm telling you, it is the law. It is signed into law as we speak right now. It will be implemented. It's just going to take a few years. As they say, they have 5-year plans, 7-year plans. But it is the law. It's done. So.
Well, and don't forget, right now. Well, on the other side, we'll talk about the white boxes. Have you heard about the white boxes and population tracking? And
the white boxes that can track whole cities.
That's right.
The black boxes that they want to put in your car. And Larry, speaking of Larry, he told me about this a while back in Buffalo. They have what I saw an article on in Washington, D.C., these monitoring, on tops of buildings and all these places, you see those white...
There's cell tower antennas.
They can pinpoint gunshots to a specific location based on these sensors they have across cities.
They've had those for a long time, though.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
And they have microphones on these.
Yep.
They have, the level of intrusion into not only the public, but our private homes through our dishwashers. And don't laugh, guys. This head of the CIA said your dishwasher's spying on you. Yeah. Our appliances.
The smart appliances.
Anything that emits an electronic frequency can also receive and transfer it back, or one back.
I told my wife during our course of travel today, I said, do not ever buy a smart anything. Smartphones, TV.
I mean, it's not even. There was a show that Jesse Ventura did on electromagnetic on the Gwen Towers. It was about a different subject, but one of the people on there giving him information said something that was very true and relevant. Everything old has become new again. It doesn't matter if it has power, if it turns on.
Well, that's very true. And as what I would do, ladies and gentlemen, if you have, for example, either an iPad, well, an iPad's a little bit different, but a laptop computer. Take the battery out of the laptop computer. Now, I do know that the computer itself has a small battery inside that keeps the time and keeps everything, but
you take your battery out of your phone. They can.
I understand
that's a myth that it doesn't.
But there are layers, and think of it as layers, folks. If you want to, there are things that you're not going to be able to, short of destroying or having someone professionally remove certain things. There are things. There are some things you can't get away from unless you actually destroy the device. Yeah. But there are layers of effectiveness. Taking the battery out of a laptop, for example, or even a cell phone, and I do understand there's still power there inherent or built into the cell phone itself, but the layers of security, at least you've got a better chance. It's not 100% foolproof, but I just want to, as a matter of helping people out, that's one way of doing things. I mean, like I said, before I've seen a case. I saw one case where the police were able to identify the location of a person within 12 feet with a cell phone. And folks, we're going to skip the top of the hour break. What I want to do at this point is before we take another call.
We hogged all the time.
Yeah, I know, but I do want to mention this. This is something that everyone needs to really pay attention to, and then we can go back to the phones. But the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, folks, we are approaching. The United States. We are approaching a corporate fascist coup in this country. Now, some will say, "Oh, it's capitalism." No, it's not capitalism. It's fascism. It's fascism by this regime and those before it. It's an illegal takeover of our sovereignty, of our country. Do you realize right now, as we are talking to you, a treaty is being hammered out by the Obama regime behind closed doors, a secret trade agreement that is so sensitive that members of Congress are not even allowed to see the draft of the treaty? The Trans-Pacific Partnership is being called the NAFTA of the Pacific, NAFTA on steroids. In fact, a New York Times article, editorial piece, had mentioned the TPP as the most significant international commercial agreement since the creation of the WTO, the World Trade Organization, in 1995. Now, all of this is being done in secret. There's no transparency. The treaty is being done through let me just tell you, those countries involved represent about half of the world's gross domestic product. So half of the world's gross domestic product is involved in this treaty. It's going to merge the United States deep into a one world global governance, global economic system.
Now, CNN would call you a subscriber to the New World Order conspiracy theory.
Well, I probably wear that title.
And it is warranted, but it should, I was thinking today, it's not a New World Order conspiracy theory. It should be the old world what do they call that show where they remodel homes and show people, they take them away on vacation? What is it? Do you know the name of it?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But it's just it's the same system with a different mask.
Exactly. Now, there's 12 countries right now that are part of this treaty. The U.S., Mexico, Canada, and of course, think of...
Is Australia one?
Well, hang on, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Australia, yes.
Okay.
Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. Hence the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Once again, all of these nations comprise about nearly half of our global domestic product. Now,
I've noticed that, not to interrupt you, but Australia is so quietly involved in so much of the U.S.'s
that's right.
Intergovernmental stuff. Their name has popped up everywhere, without really explaining why. And I don't know why. I know they have a big data center there.
Australia is playing a very major role in a lot of the tactics, the secrecy surrounding many of the initiatives that are going forth. But what really gets me is the fact that the secrecy surrounding these treaty negotiations that are being hammered out behind closed doors is unprecedented. In fact, folks, you can read, I think Kurt Nimmo, this is from Kurt Nimmo, since the beginning of the TPP negotiations, the process of drafting and negotiating the treaty's chapters has been shrouded in unprecedented level of secrecy. Now, WikiLeaks just had a release of the TPP draft, a very controversial chapter.
The copyright terms?
Exactly. I think it's chapter 12.
Yeah.
And I've got a PDF copy. I will upload it to our brand new servers. We're finally migrated to the new servers, and I'll upload it, and I'm hammering out an article on this now.
The 95 to 120-year cooperation.
That's right.
And what they want to do is it's, well, I was going to say it's insane, but it's par for the course. Well,
now, remember, okay, access to the drafts of this treaty are being absolutely off limits to the general public, and they're off limits to Congress, they're off limits to lawmakers. But who does have access to the inner workings of the Trans-Pacific Partnership? Well, you've got Monsanto. Gee, no surprise there. You've got Walmart, Chevron, and, of course, Halliburton. They have special privilege, special access to the very heart, to the very crucial, critical sections of the text of the treaty, and they are actually assisting or helping them write the treaty.
Yeah, they say that they need a strict regulation. They've released temporary copies of this, and they say that because the implications are staggering, computer networks create in normal course of operation temporary and empirical copies. Regulations on these sorts of copies are described in the earlier leak, would interface with the basic operations.
Now, you're talking about the copyright aspect of this alone. Okay, the
temporary copies, yeah.
Right.
This is, and it says would interfere with the basic technical operations and give rights holders an opportunity to sit on an essential checkpoint of the Internet. Fortunately, negotiators may have recognized the fundamental folly of this proposal, although the U.S. has yet to support any reasonable text on this topic. The draft leaked today included a proposed clarification that temporary copies may be exempted from copyright restrictions.
Well, okay, look at it this way. We talked about SOPA and PIPA and ACTA back in March of this past year.
Yeah, the Internet Cybersecurity Act.
Right. This is all going to be part of. They couldn't get SOPA, PIPA, ACTA. They couldn't get it individually. So now they're going to get it via the TPP under this copyright.
And this is this in the conclusion, not from Kurt Nimmo, but this is from a different source. The latest TPP leak confirms the long-standing fears about these negotiations. The USTR is publishing for regulations that would, for the most part, put the desires of major content and patent owners over the needs of the public. The negotiators want to keep the process secret. There are marginal improvements since February of 11 that they are not enough. Real and substantially balanced proposals will not happen unless and until negotiators can be held accountable to the public for proposals they are making. So, will we...
right, and that's just one aspect of it.
Yeah, this is the conclusion from the EFF, which is Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Okay,
this is what they published.
And they're and folks are talking about just again one small chapter that was released by WikiLeaks of this act. But here's the icing
they're taking control of the internet. They're
right. Yeah. So long will you're not going to have access if they get their way. The normal person will not have access to a lot of material that we have access to right now. So they're trying to throttle the truth. But here's the icing on the cake, and I really think that this needs to be shouted from the rooftops. The Obama regime is seeking trade promotion authority. Folks, remember that phrase, trade promotion authority. What is that? Well, that would give him the sole ability to sign the treaty before Congress even sees it or is able to see it or even vote on it.
Yeah.
Trade promotion authority.
And this is
fast-tracking it.
The treaty is just a different word for regulation. It's a fiat law, like an executive order.
Exactly. And now, during the government shutdown, Obama and his minions were heavily involved in this, the negotiations, this TPP negotiations, and this expansive plan, once again proposed between the countries I mentioned, would create these new guidelines from everything from food safety to fracking to financial markets to medical prices to copyright rules, which we just spoke of, internet freedom, which we just spoke of. These negotiations are dangerous to our sovereignty, our freedoms, and the White House website released a joint statement with other TPP nations or signatories affirming, this happened, a couple of weeks ago, affirming that they were on track to complete the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations. And, of course, Obama promised to have it fast-tracked, bypass everything, and there's no oversight. You can't see it. This is just like the health care law. We have to pass it, or bill, you have to pass it to see what's in it, but it's worse because it's not subject to it's just not subject to oversight. And people will say, well, for a treaty to be, and I hear this all the time from even conservatives. Well, people have to, or the Senate's got to ratify treaties. No,
nope.
It's just
and it'll be the only law of the Constitution that these people follow is to uphold the treaty.
Exactly. It's bizarre
because the Constitution states any treaty entered into will have to be upheld.
Well, Obama is this is a giant end run around Congress on dozens of issues. Now, some people in Congress are starting to see the light here. A small group of actually Republicans and
light.
Democrats. Well, you know what?
They're so down in the hole at darkness that if light shined in there, they're too deep. I mean,
well,
there could be a few.
You're right in that. You're right in that. I have to.
But as a majority, they could never. They will never, I should say. Not could never.
Well, they wrote. Hey, give them credit. They wrote strongly worded letters to Obama, and yeah. But and in fact,
our dog couldn't do that.
Oh man, this is one of the most important political issues. This is the Fukushima of political issues right now, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So, folks, think of it that way. That this is what Fukushima is to our survival and civilization. The TPP is to the sovereignty of our nation, and it's the most important and vital issue facing our nation here this year. And you're hearing nothing about it on the mainstream news.
The continuation of the moral decline of our population.
That's right. Exactly.
And because of that, as the Lord says, the land shall be utterly emptied and spoiled. The earth will mourneth and fadeth away, and the people of the earth do languish. And it's coming.
It's coming. That's
and
right.
I'm just going to read this headline, and then we're going to go to calls. DHS creates new fusion centers, taking control of local police. DHS doles out billions of dollars to convince local police departments to surrender control to the federal agency. A recent report indicates that the intelligence gathering at precincts surveillance centers will be shared among all levels of law enforcement. An article published by the Fierce Homeland Security on November 4th reports the phenomenon of fusion centers sharing intelligence and skills with each other, not just with the federal government, is a new and unappreciated aspect of the centers. Panelists and Homeland Security Policy Institute event said fusion centers mainly apply national intelligence to local context to gather information locally that they can share with federal agencies. But in recent years, a great deal of horizontal sharing has occurred where fusion centers work closely with each other, said Ross Ashley, the executive and national director of Fusion Center Association. We'll find an expert in Washington State on an international human trafficking over international ferry systems. Well, I don't need that expert everywhere. What I need is the ability to reach out to the expert if I'm in West Virginia, saying that this is going to help fight crime and terrible things, to help the children. And
right.
Meanwhile, it has nothing to do with that, as these people are not gathering information on criminals to make legitimate arrests, and thus they are gathering information on every American to learn their weaknesses and to exploit them in the long run. We're going to go back to the phone.
Wait, before you do that, I didn't turn my note page over here. Well, very quickly, give me 30 seconds here. Just to go back to the TPP just for a moment, and then we'll go back to the phones. Consider some interesting things. I found these statistics today. Folks, listen to this. What's taking place here is the merging of our economy with the rest of the world. And it's been disastrous so far for America. We've seen it from the 90s. We've seen it actually before then. Overall, the U.S. has run a trade deficit of more than $8 trillion with the rest of the world since 1975.
Pocket change.
Oh, yeah, pocket change is right. Since 2001, we've lost more than 56,000 manufacturing facilities. Since 2001, that's what 12 years, 13 years at the outside. Back in 2000, 17 million Americans were working in manufacturing. Today, less than 12 million. There are less Americans working in manufacturing today than there was in 1950, even though the population of the country has more than doubled since then. You can see how the demographics are working here. To expand that further, in 1950, 80% of all men had jobs. Today, less than 65% of all men have jobs. Now, consider this, NAFTA. Remember all the cheerleaders for NAFTA, or those who said, hey, don't worry about it. NAFTA is really, you're making too much of it. It's too much hype. When it was pushed through Congress back in 1993, we had a trade surplus with Mexico of $1.6 billion. 3 years ago, we had a trade deficit with Mexico of, you want to guess? From a trade surplus with Mexico of $1.6 billion to a trade deficit of $61.6 billion. That's a huge difference. In 1985, our trade deficit with China, for example, was about $6 million, give or take a few million, give or take. No, I shouldn't say, just give or take some hundreds of thousands. That was for the entire year. Back in 85, trade deficit was $6 million with China. Now, in 2012, with China, the trade deficit is now $315 billion with a B dollars. That is the largest trade deficit that any nation has had with any other nation in the history of the world. And I just wanted to give you those figures because, 40 million more U.S. jobs could be sent offshore over the next 20 years if the current trends continue. I don't believe we're going to last that long, but I failed to turn that note page over, and I wanted to give you those stats. And I know that's out of order, out of sync with the Fusion Center, but I wanted to get that. So, Joe, go ahead and take control of the board.
All right.
Of the Borg.
We're going to go to the phones now, and we're going to go to area code 570. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What is on your mind tonight?
Hey, guys. It's Pat from Tennessee. How you doing?
Great, Pat.
Good.
You're looking fine.
Doug, last week I was in New Jersey, happened to be meeting with a new group of people that are starting their own Hagmann's Heroes group. And it's funny, I heard you say, it was the day before I met them, and I heard you say on a show, here's a shout out to Hagmann's Heroes. I laughed.
Well, yeah, and just to be clear, Hagmann's Heroes is not about us. It's about you folks taking up the reins and going out and fighting the good fight. And it's just through our, kind of combining our, or using us as a conduit to do that. So that's a great job.
It makes me blush every time I hear the name. I don't know why, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're Christians, we're God's children, and we just kind of, I don't know, I guess your radio show and all the information that we learned from it helps us. So it helps us so much. Yes, it is a conduit for us. But it's interesting, the two people that are part of the group, the lady that's starting it was so resistant. I knew her before, and I used to live up there, and I've talked to her for months. She used to think I was absolutely crazy, but I would just feed her a little information now and then, what she was interested in. And then when she started seeing evidence of what I was talking about, then she started looking into it. Then she started listening to your show, and it's just amazing what happens. There was another man here in Tennessee, and I'd like to get him to our group, but right now he doesn't want to right now. But it's funny, he's willing to listen to your show, and I think with Steve Quayle and all the wonderful people that you have on there, I think in time he's going to see. He'll understand more what we're talking about, how it is the truth.
It takes some time. It's kind of like you jump in a pool of cold water. It's one thing, but if you gradually, step in inch by inch, it's something totally different. It's patience, I guess, we have to have with people, because I didn't accept half. If I would hear myself talk today, 10 years ago, I would think I had gone off nuts and completely nuts.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, it's interesting though how this all happens, because this woman that I was talking to, she's going to affect the people in her group. She works at a public school, and we started talking about Common Core. Then she started talking about teachers, different things. So she'll be affecting people there, and then they'll be affecting people. And I think, with the Affordable Care Act and all the stuff that people are starting to see, their lives are being affected. I think they're waking up faster now. And this man that I'm talking to here in Tennessee, he's a retired Los Angeles police officer, and he's interested. I was telling him about GridX and how it might affect his business, and we were talking, and when we started talking about God, and I was just telling him I have faith that really God's in control of this, and we tend to look at who the criminals that have us, the evil criminals that have us surrounded, and they're doing all these things, but we have to look at who's surrounding them. How God is surrounding them.
Right. You're exactly right. I truly believe that God is working through. Boy, I want to be careful how I say this. He's working through us, because we couldn't do this by ourselves. But God is working on the hearts, minds, and souls of people who are open, and even those who are resistant. But he's working on them and showing them the way and the light, and saying, look, you're being lied to. And I really think what's happening today, this awakening that we talk about, is really a spiritual awakening, in addition to seeing through the lies and the deception of the regular stuff.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And even in this man's case, we started talking about God, and he all of a sudden he got very upset. It seemed like he was angry with me, and he goes, let me tell you something about God. He said, as a child, he grew up. He was in Germany after the war, and he said he had to live. He and all the people he knew around him, he was a child. He had to live in a bombed-out building, and the basements were flooded. And he said, but they were building these beautiful churches all around, and people weren't being taken care of. So that's, his impression of God. But my hope is that, and he is listening to your program, my hope is that, he's going to hear something that's going to lead him to give Jesus a chance.
I hope
show him that he's real.
Yeah. Well, see, what you described and what he described is not God, that's man. And that's, that's like the group of Christians in the church in Austria who would sing louder during each service as the train whistles. They could hear the train filled with Jewish prisoners being sent off to the death camps. And to avoid, hearing the whistle and the noise of the train, they would just merely sing louder in their church service, thereby drowning out the sounds of the train. That's not God. That's man. So, but I understand where he's coming from, and it's easy to fall into that trap. So if he's listening right now, please understand, that's not God. That's man, and in fact, there's also a satanic overlay for that too. So,
yes.
Wow.
And I feel very hopeful because, no matter what happens, we know that God's in control, and if we just stay in faith, if we stay in prayer, and if we stay in the Word of God, no matter what happens, we'll be fine as His children. And I just want everybody to know that, because if you read Corrie ten Boom, The Hiding Place, or see the movie, she is one person that we could listen to because of her experience in the concentration camp. And she talked about how there's no place that's darker than that on this earth, that's more horrible. But she felt the presence of the Lord there as she ministered to people in that place.
Yeah.
And we have to hang on to that no matter what.
Absolutely we do. And the Lord, everything is done for a purpose. And we know that we are purified through tribulation, through trouble, through these things that happen to us. And it works patience in us. It works and it circumcises our heart. And, during the times you're going through and surviving these things, I think I heard a quote once saying, survival isn't just getting through something. It's learning from the experience, something along those lines. I probably butchered it, but
you did.
Yeah, we are made better. The Lord, it puts us in a state like a pot and a potter's clay, and the pot maker, where He can better mold us to His
exactly
His way.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I agree. I see that, and we have to remember too, this country was founded on God's principles, founded on the Bible, no matter what anybody says. And even if the criminals overrun us at some point, there are enough of us who know that we can get it back. I believe we can, no matter what happens. If, there's some war and it devastates this country, there's enough of us that have it in us. It's instilled in us that we know really what the spirit of America is, and we can bring it back. They can't kill all of us.
Very true. And those of us with the moral and godly principles can certainly make a stand together. And we can lock arms, and metaphorically and even in reality, lock arms and to resist what they're doing to us, because failure to do so is a failure completely. No, you're right. You're 100% right. My goodness. Just by the way, think of the quote from Thomas Jefferson: "When injustice becomes a law, resistance becomes duty." So, however we together or individually or collectively, however we present that resistance, it's our duty to do so.
Yeah, and Peter, it says this: "For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and His ears open to their prayers.
That's
but
right.
The face of the Lord is against them that do evil."
Yep.
Wow. So if we have Him behind us, and who do we have to fear? You know, you can face a firing squad. He's going to be there to protect us. We're on the right side, so, you know, we
exactly.
Yeah, we have nothing to fear.
Well,
thank you very
exactly
much.
Right.
That's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you. We got actually about $1 worth out of that. Thank you so very much for contributing, and keeping on, and let us know about the progress of Hagmann's Heroes to get the word out there and to build this resistance, this grassroots campaign from the ground up. This is great. So God bless you. Thank you.
One-on-one attention that's working. Well, thank
Beautiful.
you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah. And Joe, I forgot to tell you this. Earlier today before the show, I don't know whether you saw this or not, and I believe somebody had emailed this to me. And if you did, thank you for that. But did you hear about this? And folks, this is important. A federal judge has ruled that the U.S. government's internet kill switch that we've heard so much about, it's a plan to deactivate the wireless communication networks in a crisis that in fact, many executive orders refer to this, is not protected by secrecy laws and must be disclosed to the public. The ruling on SOP 303, the Department of Homeland Security Standard Operating Procedure, comes from U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg in Washington. Now, the judge ordered DHS to turn over SOP 303 to the Electronic Privacy Information Center, which brought the Freedom of Information Act case within 30 days. They've got to turn over within 30 days. Now, the judge ordered his action stayed until it's determined whether the government will appeal, and you can bet your bippy, remember laughing, that they will appeal. Epic, nevertheless, declared victory, explaining that it sought the documentation to determine whether the agency's plan could adversely affect or impact free speech or public safety. So this is something to watch, folks. Put in your search engine, SOP 303, and Epic in the ruling of Judge James Boasberg from Washington. Keep a close eye on this because who knows? This might be a little bit of a tear into the fabric, into the veil of secrecy.
All right. We're going to go to the phones. And let's see. We're going to play Wheel of Phones and find a number to pick up here.
Take them in the order in which we received them.
Okay, we're going to go to 331. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yeah, Joe and Doug?
That's us, man.
I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm talking to you guys.
I can't believe we're talking to you either, man.
Hey, what I wanted to say was... Okay, thanks. What I wanted to say was, I know you and Steve Quayle talk a lot about the principalities and princes of darkness, that kind of stuff. And I had an encounter with that I wanted to share with you.
All right.
Okay, kind of explains. To me, it explained a lot of things. What happened was.
Are you? By the way, are you bringing your groceries in from the car or something? I mean,
wrestling with aluminum foil.
Yeah.
There's just some
distorted background noise there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm outside. That's the problem, but it's kind of quiet out there. I'm out of breath because talking to you guys kind of.
Okay, there you go.
No, the noise is gone. It was something else.
Okay.
Background noise.
Go ahead.
Okay. So what happened was my wife was, but we were having a baby, and the baby was stillborn. Okay, 20 weeks. So. As part of the procedure, the baby has to be born at the hospital. So my wife and I went in my wife delivered the baby who was stillborn, and
well, I'm
while
sorry.
I was there, well, that's okay. But I was holding the baby. My wife was out of the room. I was holding the baby, and they give you like 2 to 3 hours to grieve. So as I was holding the baby, his angel came down into the room, and I had basically had a chance to say goodbye to his, to him as an angel. And there was a couple things that I just wanted to impress upon you. One was, before his angel came into the room, all the evil spirits had to leave that room. And it was, first of all, the room got really cold, and then all these evil spirits, and I mean there was billions of them, not millions, billions, left the room, and they were all very angry because an angel had come down to make a visit to the earth. And as they all disappeared, there was incredible anger, meanness, but they all had to leave. So then the angel came down, and the angel basically explained to me that that everything, all God in heaven and all that stuff is basically very close to us, on earth. Not all on earth, but close to us in from one universe to another, or one, reality to another. And he said it was so close that it was like just being on the other side of the fence.
Wow.
And that was the. And then he said that that he would be okay. And he also said that all the babies that are being aborted, or any baby that dies young, automatically becomes an angel. So, that's part of the plan. And
wow.
God told me to share that with people, because that's kind of what we're up against. We're on this earth, and it's a lot more evil than you think, because of these spirits that are, I don't know where they came from, or whether to me, they were demons and devils. They inhabit the earth, and they're around us all the time, and we are basically living on their turf, and they can pretty much do whatever they want to do until God intervenes. And when the angel came down, who was my son, who was up in heaven, he's up in heaven now, all those devils and demons had to leave that area because of just the presence, the greatness of of God's goodness and strength and power. They have to leave. They cannot overcome it. So
now, was this angel? Was this angelic presence? Did it manifest itself in the form of a physical presence, or in other words, could you actually see an embodiment of an angel, or was it just the spirit, if you will?
No, it was the actual angel. It was my son grown up.
Okay. Wow.
It was yeah.
And
I mean,
for
it's
those
really deep stuff. Really deep stuff.
Yeah. Want to jump in and say, for those who might think, oh yeah, he saw an angel. You don't see that. I know somebody personally who has had an experience of an angel protecting them, literally protecting them, putting their wing around it. This person, and I know this person would not make this stuff up. And I've heard and seen many near-death experience stories. Very common theme. Angels are real, and evil is real, and good is real. The good spirits, they're there, and you're right. I believe they are. They call it like a parallel dimension, but they're right here. They are.
Yeah, they're right here working amongst us. So a lot of good things that happen to people are based upon angels helping them out, and a lot of bad things that probably happen to people are based upon evil being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, how could you influence somebody if you're, not in? I mean, they have to be close in order to do things to be able to get to us. So
we're all going to go to heaven, I guess, anybody who makes that choice. And there's going to be some people who don't want to go that way. They're just would rather have it good, I guess, just like it says in the Bible. They rather have their time here on earth, but they can't have it both ways. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, I don't want to hold you up too long, is if we wanted to change the way things are with these the government, giving us a hard time, and like you said, people want to stand up, but they don't really know how to. Like your friend there, Doug, is
right.
Just don't shop for a day. Everybody get together and say, hey, we're not going to go spend our money on one day. You pick a day, and as we're getting close to Christmas, just say, hey, this is our statement. We don't need to play your game. We have, we don't need to go shop. We don't need to, like you said, Doug, we don't need to play the game. So just show, if you get enough people to do that, they would definitely have to listen, and it would cause, it would definitely shake things up, and we could finally get a voice. Because right now we have no voice because everybody's scared. Everybody's scared to do anything.
Exactly, and we're not going to get that voice through organizations like the Tea Party, for example, or that's not to slam the Tea Party. I'm just afraid it's not going to coalesce in the fashion that it needs to coalesce. We have to act collectively, but individually, and I know that's kind of a conflicting statement or sentiment, but we must do this, and it can't be just one day. It's got to be like, okay, we'll do it once this week, once next week. We have to keep the pressure on until such time as we exact some sort of change from them. And but I think you're right. I think that this is one way of doing it, and we have to keep doing it pretty soon. And who knows? Maybe there'll come a time when everything stops, like in Poland, everything stops. We can prevail at least for a time, at least while we have the ability to. So you're 100% right. But boy, I just have to tell you, please accept my our very extreme apologies and sorrows and to lose a child. But how great is that to have that child as an angel? There's no better gift. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm telling you guys, because I know you guys will believe, and the listeners will believe, because we're all one big family. So
that's right. That's right.
I'm glad I had a chance to bring that out to you guys.
Well, thank you so very much. While we're sorry for your loss, we share in the joy which you have in knowing that your son is in heaven, and just you again will reunite with your son, and then how great is that? So thank you for sharing that so very precious story.
Just to let you know, I've had many interventions where good things have happened, where I get constrict to this relationship that I have, and the belief in Jesus is probably the main thing. So that's where I stand. I just want to let people know.
Well, God bless you, my friend. Thank you so very much for the call, and you take care of yourself. Give your wife a hug, and you'll be in our prayers for sure.
Okay. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great night. All right.
That'd be a tough. That's tough. I mean, I've been,
that's one thing though. The hope of the other side of, we know that nothing is lost. Everything that is created for a purpose, and that purpose is known to the Father, and we don't always understand it, nor will we while we're here.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's nothing is done by Him for any bad reason. It will all work out in the end, and we will get to the other side and say, "Oh, how genius," or "how wonderful."
Yeah.
It's hard though when you're actually going through the storm.
Very difficult
to see the purpose of these things at times.
Exactly, but we have to have the faith.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to go back to the phones, and we're going to go to, let's see, we had a bunch of people jump on here. So I do want to get to the people who've been on hold the longest. 304. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Thanks for being patient and holding.
Well, good evening, Joe and Doug. It's another beautiful night in West Virginia. Still from West Virginia. It's a little cold out here tonight. Your last caller, because I've been really contemplating what I was going to say the next time I got on the air, and there are experiences in life sometimes that where the two realms meet, the seen and the unseen meet, sometimes like your last caller, and sometimes we see angels.
Yep.
Sometimes, and it was going to be hard for me. I really, I had an experience when I was a teenager, I guess, in my late teens. I was 19 years old. I was in California, and I was taken down underneath the ground, underneath the earth, by my guardian angel but I got to see one of them, one of those locked up angels, a long time before I ever read the Book of Enoch. I only read the Book of Enoch like 2 or 3 years ago. This is when this is like 20 years ago.
All right.
I went down underneath the ground, and I saw one of those beings that are locked in chains, and they're not pretty.
I was going to say, what did it look like?
Like a dragon.
Okay.
I've heard
a literal dragon.
Yeah. I've heard their appearance is, and they say men's hearts will fail them for what comes upon the earth, that these beings or things will scare people to death from their appearance.
What was the purpose of having you taken down to see one of these chained angels?
Yeah, it wasn't a vacation.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. But it changed me forever. I don't look at the Bible the same way. It changed me. And there is existence, and there is life. God offers life. But there is existence without God, and that is what they are. They exist without God. They don't have so much despair. I felt it was the most horrible thing I've ever experienced. To know that there is existence without God. God is life. God is the creator of life. He is love. There is no love there. There's hatred there. They hate us.
Yeah, the attributes of God are not there. Love,
not
strength,
there.
Peace, things that...
Everything that God is not there with them. And these people that... What I'm trying to say is these people that worship these things, these fallen entities, these fallen angels, what do you think they are?
Well, we're told that even Lucifer presents himself as an angel of light, so maybe that appearance isn't what they see and are deceived.
I know. I just wish people would understand that when, you have Russ Dizdar on and different people, and they talk about these things, and these entities are real. They're devoid life, and they're devoid God, and they're devoid honor, and they're devoid any semblance of creation as it was meant to be.
Angel Wars. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Steve Quayle's Angel Wars talks about this, and True Legends touches on it as well. But But you're right, and the fact that we're going to spend the weekend with Russ Dizdar at the conference in Canton, Ohio this weekend, I think plays into what you. I mean, it's interesting timing. I talked to Steve Quayle. I think it was this morning, maybe late last night, early this morning, and we're going to do a program on Sunday. And I think some of this it's going to be kind of an extension of what you're talking about, what that last caller talked about. The weekend conference, and then into Sunday's program. This is all tied together, and you're right. There's
I can't wait. I'll be listening.
Well, I got to tell you, there's life and then there's existence. And Steve Quayle and Pastor Langford, by the way, I should say. But you're right. There's life and then there's existence, and there's a distinction between the two. And you're absolutely 100% correct. And we know that the existence or the veil between what we can see and what we can't see is becoming torn, and I think we're going to be seeing more and more of what you had the opportunity to see, except under different circumstances.
I hope not, but I hope not. I hope no one ever has to see one of those things, because they are the most pitiful. If the Book of Enoch is true, that God, He locked those chains. He locked them down in chains without His presence, without His love. How do you think they're going to be after, let's say, from the time of Noah's flood up until now, that you've been locked in a room by yourself? And all you can do, and you saw your children die. You saw everything that you had put. They gambled it all, and they lost.
It was their choice, but you're exactly right. They were given what they asked for, by God. So, but yeah, it's not going to be pretty. They're going to have a bad attitude. I'm sure they already do.
They do already have a bad attitude.
Yeah.
But let me reiterate just a little bit. The people that worship those things,
yep,
and call them gods just because they have power, they ain't got nothing.
Very true.
So very well said. Yeah. And
my goodness.
All right.
They have
you guys
less than nothing.
Have a wonderful night, and
thank you.
Thank you for your platform and for all that you do for all of us. Well, and I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. I pray for you guys. I'm constantly with you. You guys are my friends.
And we're family. Let's put it that way. Everyone listening to this program, either live or rebroadcast, you're all our family, and your family, and we look at it that way. And what we do from here on out is going to, one affects the other. We're all in this together. So
we are. And yes, if I may say one more thing.
Sure.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine last night, and we were talking about being here at this time. We're all under pressure. We don't want to see what's going to happen. We don't want to witness what's going to be in our faces.
Right.
But God had a plan, and He planned for us to face this, and we will face it together, and we're not going to be afraid.
Amen. Amen, my brother. Well said.
All right.
God bless. Thank you for your call. God
all right.
bless.
Love you guys.
All right. Love you too, man.
Bye-bye.
Wow. All right. Yeah.
All
right.
There.
Sure. Yeah.
Fantastic callers tonight, and fantastic insight and diverse. We had, like you said, the timing of the calls and the topic matter of the calls, from angels to just things that are important, and these topics are coming up now for a reason. We need to find out why.
Well, I think Yeah, I think we have to keep that in mind. I think we know why. I think the time is getting close. And, Steve Quayle says God makes better friends for us than we can for ourselves. And I think that's what's happening here with our audience. We're developing this camaraderie, this resistance, this remnant, this group that it's really supernatural, and I don't mean that in any type of New Age sense. I mean it's divine, and I think it speaks to our presence here. And the last caller said it well. We are born for this time and place for a reason. If you're listening to this program, you've got a job to do, and you were born for this time and place.
Absolutely. In Jeremiah, in the beginning of Jeremiah, the Lord says, before I formed thee, or before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. This one verse gives us insight into the Lord's aspect of the Lord's plan and the power of His creation and will.
Yes. And
this. When I read that verse, it makes me think of abortion, because every single time we talk about that issue, it's one of the worst things to talk about. We know it's a satanic sacrifice, and
it is
knowing that the Lord
satanic ritual. Yep.
Says before you were conceived, He knew you. So we could go start a debate on when is life.
Well, but what does that mean?
When does
really?
life begin?
But even beyond that point of life in conception, if you take that statement literally, what does that mean? It means that we were in heaven.
Known by God before he was put into the womb. So he was a person or a presence before that.
Exactly. And that I think we have to. I think that's the story. Is
it's not that we're reincarnated. But
no,
we are obviously created in maybe a spiritual way before in a physical way.
We're not bodies that have souls. We're souls that are given bodies, and these are our earthly vessels. So there was a level of knowledge or an intimacy with God prior to us being carnal, and I think that's the real story. And a lot of people have a difficulty with that. Really comprehending that. I do too. I did and still do. But if you think about it, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. So we're getting close to the end of the program, Joe.
Yes, we are. And just to reiterate about tomorrow, we will not be having a live show. We will be rebroadcasting the fantastic show from Wednesday, the 30th of October, I think, with Paul McGuire was on.
Correct.
And this was a show, and we got to have him back on. We got to schedule him again, because that one last show we did was not long enough to get into. Well, and the things we did get into, we couldn't continue, and we could have done a 12-hour show with Mr. McGuire. And we received so much positive feedback, and he sent us emails too on feedback he's received. We have to do that again, and we have other guests that we are trying to line up, new guests and reoccurring guests. Augusto Perez is somebody I want to talk to and get back on the show.
Absolutely.
He has very pertinent information, timely information we need to hear.
Yeah, and just to reiterate the fact that we don't like to take days off. I mean, it's not in our nature to do so, but I think this is pretty important, given the conference setting, the topic matters, satanic occult ritual crimes, and Russ Tisdar.
And even besides that conference, we need to take tomorrow off. And I say, we've had a rough week, and not in the sense that we've been going through terrible things, but it's been so hectic, chaotic, with so many different things going on. We're traveling. We'll relax and spend some time together as a family, and maybe even listen to the rebroadcast of the show.
In fact, that's very good. That's a very good possibility.
And
folks,
Sunday.
If you're planning on attending the conference in Canton, Ohio, just tap me on the shoulder, and I'll buy you a cup of coffee or whatever. It'd be great to meet you. Joe and I will.
And we'll be back here Sunday, too.
Sunday night.
Yes, with Pastor Langford and Steve. And it will be And great show, which we're looking forward to also. Do you know the topic or subject matter?
I do. To find